Neolite is my favourite event in Arknights. This is Margaret Noel's premiere event, and the event really delves into what makes her tick. We know that the Radiant Knight is viewed by many people in the world as being one of the paragons of virtue. Within Casimirs itself, Noel is well respected by the general public as well as the infected knights and citizens. However, many of the more veteran and disillusioned knights, including Noel's uncle as well as the General Chamber of Commerce, have a distinct distaste of Noel, viewing her as an upstart, naive kid, which, although Noel is quite young, she, thanks to her exile, has gained much more worldly experience than many of the people living within Casimirs, or of course, Noel's uncle. As such, throughout the event, we get to see how Noel's exile has hardened her resolve and ideals. She admits to have been lost when she was first banished from Casimirs. However, due to the tragedy and suffering of the common people and infected she saw throughout the land outside of Casimirs, and through her companions in Rhodes Island, and especially Nightingale and Shining, Noel's ideals were able to fully crystallize. And to no one's surprise, who is familiar with Noel's character, it crystallized in her doubling down on her previously held convictions. But before this video gets bogged down only talking about Noel, let's just hop into the event, story, and why I think it's so good. The event tells the story of the Casimirs Major Final, and of course it's not just a simple tournament that is taking place. There are many powers struggling within Casimirs, but it's primarily the General Chamber and the Knights. Both sides are unwilling to directly clash with each other, and as such are using proxies throughout the event. The Knights have allied with the infected nightclub Pinus Sylvestris, and of course the General Chamber has the Ormulus Union. Noel, as we learn throughout this event, is not infected. However, the infected are one of the core components of this event. The infected throughout the event are fighting in order to stop the discrimination that they face on a daily basis. And the bigotry in Casimirs is on full display right from the beginning, with one of the infected knights being beaten practically to death. Noel is obviously treated as an infected until she wins the major, because the General Chamber just wanted an excuse to try to damage Noel's reputation. The Knights have also put their fate into Noel's major run. The Knights hate the major on a fundamental level. However, Noel is the shining paragon of knightly virtue, and as such, the Adeptus are willing to go to extreme lengths to ensure the General Chamber cannot stop her run. And the Chamber is putting their best effort into stopping that run. During Noel's duel with the Candle Knight Vivian, Blemishine is abducted by Platinum, and Blemishine is only saved thanks to the timely interference of Pinus Sylvestris, and without anything to even potentially hold her back, Noel defeats the Candle Knight. After this failed attempt by the Ormulus Union, they try a more direct method. The two Lazarites confront Noel when she is with Nightingale and Shining, and try to get her to have a peace treaty with them. During this conversation, Darksteel, the leader of the Ormulus Union, attempts to assassinate Nightingale, but is thwarted by the combined efforts of Shining and Noel. And recognizing that they have failed, the Lazarites retreat. Only days later, Pinus Sylvestris are preparing to break into the General Chamber in order to steal information that would help them get their freedom. However, the Ormulus Union plan to use the infected as a scapegoat in order to further their own goals. As such, they cause a massive blackout throughout the entirety of the Grand Knight territory. During this time, there is massive violence on the street, and Flametail breaks into the General Chamber in order to get this information. But before she can escape, she is confronted by Roy, who almost kills her, if not for the timely intervention of the Candle Knight. Additionally, Due to the Omnus Union's reckless actions, the Silverlance Pegasi are able to enter Casimiras. Silverlance Pegasi are the strongest knights within Casimiras, basically being Casimiras' equivalent of the Emperor's Blades. After the events of this night, the duel between the Nightmare Knight and the Radiant Knight is set to take place. Their battle is extremely intense, and after the two get serious, the match is called off by the judges. This was planned by the General Chamber, as they wanted to use a false rules violation in order to stop the match. Due to neither Null or Tola backing down, the Blood Knight jumps into the arena in order to stop their fight. While doing so, he challenges Tola, telling him he will be the one to defeat him in the major. And this is a promise the Blood Knight will follow through on, defeating Tola in their next duel. Tola, before this however, attempts to track down Null to finish their duel. This results in him battling Blemishine, and despite Tola not respecting Blemishine, she manages to stall him long enough for him to see reason. The Omnus Union, in an effort to stop the infected from gaining any more assistance from Rhodes Island, sends Platinum to assassinate the Doctor. However, thanks to the efforts of Gravel, she is delayed long enough to receive new orders calling off the hit. And that brings us on to the final. The ultimate duel of Neolite is, of course, the Blood Knight versus the Radiant Knight. And it's quite a battle for the ages. It's accompanied by a fantastic CG where Null and the Blood Knight are preparing their final attack. The condensed light spear versus the condensed blood sword. And in one ultimate final clash, Null comes out the victor, once again claiming a championship victory. However, the Omnus Union are not just going to let this happen. They attempt to infiltrate the arena to kill Null, but they are stopped by the Silverlance Pegasi. After Null claims victory, it's revealed to Casimiras that the report on her infection was fake, and that Null was in fact not an infected. Null, of course, knew this was going to happen, and in order to not let the General Chamber have their way, Null takes the Blood Knight to the Hall of Champions with her, ignoring the organizers completely. The Omnus Union once again attempt to stop her, and once again the Silverlance Pegasi come to her rescue, forming a protective guard around her that not even the Omnus Union are willing to challenge, with the exception of Monique trying to assassinate her at the last minute, although Shining effortlessly puts a stop to that. And with that, Null is the champion of the Casimiras Major. And despite winning the Major, Null is fully aware that she has not changed anything. She knows that one night cannot revive the glory of a country in one victory. But she has reminded everyone in Casimiras, from the lowest infected to the highest aristocrat, that the glory of the knights still remain in Casimiras. And despite the General Chamber's insistence that it does not matter, the light of Null has reignited the knightly passion in many of those around her, least of all Moiner, who, simply by regaining some of his goals, has frightened Darksteel enough to go out and promise not to hurt Rhodes Island or the Null family ever again. Neolite is so good, so amazing to me, because it has a very clear and defined goal. Not only does it show off the incredible character of Margaret Null herself, it also reminds the reader that the infected are actually being oppressed throughout the world. Sometimes when we're reading about how badass and powerful Rhodes Island is in the main story, we forget that the common infected are actively being harassed by the countries they live in. And nowhere in the game of Arknights is it more visible than in Casimiras. It's not the cold hatred the Ursus soldiers have for the infected, nor is it the feigned benevolence of Columbia. The infected in Casimiras are truly treated as lesser beings. Their only way to have some semblance of life is to be a knight, and to be an infected knight is to constantly suffer harassment from the General Chamber. Even the only area in the Grand Knight territory that allows infected treatment is restricted to infected knights. And despite Noel being an incredibly powerful knight and well respected by everyone, she wasn't the one who achieved even that level of infected acceptance. That was the Blood Knight. So it's clear that those who claim the title of Grand Knight are not just simple, common-minded people. In many ways, despite the General Chamber's insistence that knights are an outdated concept, they are the most progressive and free-thinking of all of those within Casimirs. And considering that many of the most powerful knights in the Major were from different countries, it's clear that as long as you have a knightly spirit, anyone can come to Casimirs and show off their knightly valor, which is one of the reasons why I so enjoy this event. Noel is definitely getting her own dedicated character video, but that's gonna have to wait for another time. This video is long enough as it is. If you made it to this point, please have a great day, be good people, and I'll talk to you next time.